Hello guys, long time no see here on Tinkle Sports and Entertainment. This is out of turn 4. Oh my goodness. So first off, oh man, I just gotta say thanks for staying patient. Thanks for realizing why we haven't had races on here or videos on here in a long time. Um, of course, I was busy coaching. Jason's been busy coaching. Marty's been busy. So that's why there have been no videos on this channel. And I apologize if I'm a little soft spoken. I'm just getting over a little bit of a cold. I'm just getting over possibly a touch of COVID too. So my sincere apologies for that. But coming up on this special edition of Out of Turn 4, we're going to discuss the Daytona 500, the 2024 NASCAR Cup Series, and Xfinity and Truck seasons. And then, of course, we will make our picks, or I'll make my picks for the upcoming 500. So with that, let's get going. So we begin by recapping Speedweeks thus far. Joey Logano, Michael McDowell. I did not see this one coming, and I don't think anyone had this on their bingo cards. They lock up the front row for Sunday. It is the first time that no Hendrick Motorsports car has been on the front row since 2014, and also the first time that Alex Bowman has not been on the front row in 6 years. Of course, a Daytona record right there. Of course, also in qualifying, David Reagan for Roush Fenway Keselowski and Anthony Alfredo for Beard Motorsports lock up their spots in the 500, so they don't have to worry about last night at the duels. And it was a little bit hectic at the duels, by the way, as we get into discussing that. Tyler Reddick, he goes on to win duel number 1. And Jimmy Johnson, one that, oh man, if he didn't race his way in, I'm going to tell you right now, if he didn't race his way in, there were going to be some heads rolling after that. So thank goodness he gets himself in, and barely over JJ Yeley. And JJ Yeley, just props to him. He was picked last second to drive this number 44 car for New York Racing, kind of a last second deal, and he was up there battling, he was up there fighting. I thought this would be a Connor Daly type situation from last season where, man, he's going to wait for a wreck and he's going to back into a spot. No, not the case. He earned his way in, or he should have earned his way in. And Jimmy, raced very strong too. But again, Jimmy prevails. JJ goes home. And of course, he will be joining BJ McLeod after Christopher Bell wins duel number 2. Of course, Reddick wins duel 1. Bell wins duel 2. But boy, BJ McLeod, he put that $40 million that he got from Spire and Trackhouse to good use, because he came to play Thursday. I mean, he was running top 5 at one point. I'm like, oh my goodness. I'm like, what is going on here? How is the 78 just so strong right now? And he looked like, man, if he could just get a push, I thought maybe he could even win that duel at one point. That's how strong the 78 looked. Of course, though, he gets involved in someone else's mess. And unfortunately, it came down to turn 4 once again. Boy, the duels led to a lot of drama. But BJ McLeod unfortunately ends up going home, as Kaz Gralla, who really wasn't a factor for most of that duel, he races his way in. Unfortunate for BJ, of course, but JJ and BJ get to go home. Gralla races his way in. Just phenomenal racing in the duels. It honestly was fun to watch. Not much single file train racing, which we're used to. I enjoyed it. Fox, I think, areas they stepped it up, areas they still got to improve on, and we'll of course cover that at a later time. And of course, we'll also cover the TV deal at a later time. I hope we'll have a little bit of time to maybe do an extra episode to cover a lot of the off-season changes across all of motorsports, because I feel like there's been so many changes that got to be documented. And it's just, this is a Daytona 500 special, so I want to focus primarily on this. But again, the duels are set, the lineups are set for Sunday's race. And of course, I believe it's all over Twitter where the starting lineup is, so you want to check that out. Or it's on NASCAR.com or your app. But Truck Series, only one practice so far. Johnny Sauter was the fastest. I'm not surprised. Chevy usually is on their A game at Daytona in the trucks. Nothing really to report on Xfinity yet. I believe they've gotten underway today. I'm recording on Thursday night, so I don't have any info, unfortunately. But let's get into the off-season changes. Many of these, of course, I've already reported from last season, but we will go over it very briefly. Of course, not many rule changes, just one. The stage break cautions are back at the road courses. I've already stated my opinion on that. And then, of course, this one, and I like this one. I don't know how this wasn't allowed. How was this banned? LED panels are now allowed on the pit boxes facing out to the drivers. I never understood why this wasn't allowed. Maybe someone can educate me here. But I thought it was allowed, but teams didn't want to do it. That's what I thought it was. But either way, it'll be nice to showcase the sponsors. What I'd love for them to do for the fans is showcase the pit times on there. That would be pretty cool. You know how IndyCar had the LED panels on the cars that would show how fast the pit stops were. It would be nice to see it on the pit boxes for NASCAR. We'll see if they make that happen. It'd be nice for the fans to see, because I think when you're at the track, you really don't get to see pit speeds. That's the one I'll comment on. But as far as team changes, of course, Spire has purchased the Live Fast charter for $40 million, and that will be used to field Zane Smith from Trackhouse full-time in the Cup Series. And of course, I imagine he will be the favorite to win the Rookie of the Year. Driver changes, of course, Zane Smith signed a multi-year deal with Trackhouse. He is on loan to Spire. Josh Berry, Noah Gragson to Stewart Haas Racing, replacing Kevin Harvick and Eric Almirola, respectively. Carson Hocevar, of course, the Truck Series, the controversial Truck Series driver, he moves up to Cup as well to join Spire Motorsports. John Hunter Nemechek, the man who went back down to reinvent himself, is now back up in the Cup Series with Legacy Motor Club and Toyota. Daniel Hemrick, he has been promoted to the Kaulig Cup team as the replacement for Justin Haley, and after much deliberation, after much fear, AJ Allmendinger was demoted back to Xfinity Series full-time. In the number 16, you may ask what happened to the Kaulig entry. It has now become a rotating seat. Of course, the only drivers we are aware of right now are their Xfinity full-time drivers. Of course, AJ Allmendinger, Shane Van Gisbergen, and Josh Williams will share the seat throughout the year, with potentially others still to be determined. So that'll be something to keep an eye on. And then, of course, Kaz Grala moves up from the Sam Hunt Racing Toyota to the Rick Ware Racing Ford in the Cup Series full-time, or almost full-time. He'll be competing for Rookie of the Year, but he will be missing 10 races this year. And, of course, Grala will team up with Justin Haley in a power move by Rick Ware Racing to try to be taken more seriously. And, of course, those two will be primarily the drivers for Rick Ware Racing this upcoming season. I gotta say, Gralla to Rick Ware, didn't see that one coming. SVG to Colleague, it was rumored. It was a potential to happen. I thought for sure SVG would just kind of float around, maybe run, 12 truck races, 20 Xfinity, 10 to 12 Cup races. Did not expect it to become what it became with a full-time Xfinity deal. So good for him, good for Trackhouse. Of course, Trackhouse has SVG under contract, much like Zane Smith, but on loan to Colleague Racing. So that is kind of what's going on with Trackhouse. So with that, we'll get into our bold predictions here, or my bold predictions here for the upcoming NASCAR season. Of course, the first one I want to predict: Spire's going to win their first race since 2019. Of course, Justin Haley was their last winner in the NASCAR Cup Series. Of course, rain delay at Daytona. I think it might not only be their first win since 2019, but it'll be their first one. It won't be on a restrictor plate, I don't think. I think it could be on a 1.5 miles. I think it could be on a short track, maybe even. But Spire has shown clear investment. They paid $40 million for the new facility. Gainbridge has jumped on as a sponsor. Chili's has jumped on as a sponsor. WeatherTech has jumped on as a sponsor. Just so many big sponsors. Of course, we know the investment by Andretti potentially in there too. I'm telling you. And on top of it, buying Kyle Busch Motorsports in the off season to become one of the premier truck teams now. To me, this is a no excuse type of year. Spire is going to win a race. I predict it. I see it. Maybe even 2 races. I'll be willing to say that. And of course, Trackhouse kind of helping the 71 out. That could be paying dividends as well. But I see either the 71 or the 7 being the guy to get that win. Those cars potentially going to get the win for them. But again, Spire will win a race this year. I can almost guarantee you that. Okay, that's my bold prediction number 1. Number 2, 2311. They are going to make that championship leap this year. Tyler Reddick showed promise. Tyler Reddick looked like he had a shot at Martinsville. Of course, he had to win, I believe, if I recall correctly. Bubba Wallace has shown great growth last year, and the ceiling, there's no ceiling right now to his potential, as well as Reddick's. So I see them making the leap, and honestly, that duel at Daytona just further validates what I say. But again, I think 2311, one of their drivers, more than likely Tyler Reddick, will represent them in the championship 4. My third and final bold prediction, I'm predicting an SHR resurgence. This is a team built with racers, not with paid drivers. So, but I do believe, though, it'll be a two-headed monster that's going to lead it. Not necessarily a monster, but just 2 drivers that are going to lead this charge. And of course, I believe it'll come from the 2 that did end up staying in Briscoe and Preece, with Briscoe potentially advancing to the round of 8. Okay, so those are my predictions, or my bold predictions. And again, I just see these things. I don't know if they're for sure going to happen, but those are the things I foresee being the biggest potential to happen of the wild things we might see this year. Moving on to more season predictions. These ones are a little bit more realistic, a little bit more calculated than the top 3 bold predictions. So these ones I think are more likely to happen. And it begins with the hot seat. Daniel Suarez. It's written on the wall. Okay. Trackhouse has 2 charters. Okay. Again, the charter system unknown for the future. The future of the charter system is unknown. But we know one thing's for sure. Trackhouse has 2 guys on loan. SVG, who they want to bring to Cup full time, and Zane Smith, who is Cup ready, who's over at Spire right now. Okay, we know for a fact Ross is not going anywhere. Ross Chastain is going to be there as long as he keeps winning. So that leaves Daniel Suarez the odd man out. Because if the charters continue, either they're going to have to purchase a 3rd charter or Suarez is going to be out. And I think Suarez being out is the most likely of that. So Suarez has got to win races. He's got to make the playoffs, and he's got to make a run. This team has gotten so good the last 2 years. There's no more excuses for him. Harrison Burton and the Wood brothers. Now again, Team Penske is responsible for determining who's behind the wheel of that 21, but a lot of underperforming. We've seen Rick Ware Racing invest and step it up this year with Haley and Gralla. We have seen Spire make aggressive swings this offseason to get better. Now the pressure's on Harrison Burton, and like I said, the 21's going to be watched as a team that could be in the bottom 3. And I think that's a potential. Stuart Haas obviously is going to be in that situation too. So for Harrison, and again, he's been scrutinized quite a bit, but if he doesn't show growth this year, if he doesn't make that leap, I think if he doesn't get toward the top 20 in the standings, I think there's going to be an argument that he's not going to be back, regardless of what money he brings. Corey LaJoie, he's the 3rd one. I'm sorry, your team just invested $40+ million into the future. This isn't the same Spire team he was with 2 years ago that was borderline 30th at best, or the borderline 34th best team in the garage. There's been so much investment. Corey LaJoie has to make it work now. This is essentially the go out there and prove it year if you're Corey LaJoie. He's gotten his chances at Hendrick. Didn't pan out, unfortunately. He's gotten chances the last 2 years to win races before these big investments. Now, if you believe you are on a premier team, and this team believes that they are on track to become a premier team, they can't be held back by a driver who doesn't perform, doesn't make the playoffs, and doesn't at least make a statement to make the playoffs. So if Corey LaJoie doesn't make those leaps this year, they're going to leave him in the dust. Okay, because I guarantee you that there are guys who are going to be released this offseason. There are guys who are going to be moving up from Xfinity who are going to be looking at that ride very, very closely. Those are going to be guys who could really make the leap to Cup to drive the number 7 next year. So that's my prediction as far as the hot seat. And I'm going to say SHR drivers, they are not on the hot seat. And I'm not going to say which drivers, but all 4 of them are going to be on watch this year. Cole Custer won a championship last year in Xfinity. It's clear they want to promote him back up, but they don't have a seat to do so. Riley Herbst hit his, again, late last year, that routing at Las Vegas that he put on, that clinic he put on at Las Vegas, how he's performed in the Cup car, granted on super speedways, but the way he has performed, he's going to put the pressure on them. He's going to make it tough on them to where, he might put him in a situation where he has to get promoted. So, again, because those guys are going to land Cup rides next year, I imagine, that's going to leave SHR drivers on watch. And I don't believe Briscoe's seat is hot. Or if I had to pick one seat that's the warmest, it's probably Briscoe or Priest. Briscoe's up there. Gregson's up. Gregson's probably the second hottest seat there. But again, I think all four of them are going to be on watch if Tony Stewart decides to stay with this "we want racers" ideology. So, with that, playoff predictions. Round of 16 for the Cup. I'm going to be a little more in-depth with the Cup and a little less in-depth with Xfinity, but I will give you drivers to watch this year. Round of 16, Denny Hamlin, Christopher Bell, three of the four Gibbs guys I see making it again, but one change. Truex isn't making the playoffs again. I'm sorry. You know, he had a good year last year. He had a big bounce back year, but he collapsed. Like from race 1 of the playoffs till his elimination at Martinsville, and he backed his way in to the round of 8. Should have never made it. He looked horrible in the playoffs last year. Looked like he was ready to retire. All that momentum just gone after Sherry Pollock's unfortunate passing. I just think that this is going to be a tough start to the year. I think the momentum they had last year is gone. And Ty Gibbs is getting hot. So I think Gibbs makes it in. Both 2311 drivers, Bubba and Tyler Reddick, get in. Ross is a clear cut in. Blaney Logano for Penske, they're in. McDowell will be in. Of course, McDowell now has the Team Penske Alliance over at Front Row Motorsports, so that could be one to watch. Byron Elliott Larson, they're going to get in. I don't know about Bowman. That's going to be a tough one. And of course, I said Spire's going to win a race, and I think it's going to be Zane Smith. That's going to be my prediction. Zane Smith is going to make the playoffs. Chris Buescher, Chase Briscoe, and I'm picking Brad Keselowski. Brad Keselowski will make the playoffs here. Championship 4 picks, Hamlin, Bell, Larson, Buescher. I'm thinking because Buescher, that team, that RFK team, got hot late last year. They're showing that they are the top Ford team outside of Front Row Motorsports. It's going to happen, I think, this year. Christopher Buescher is going to get over that hump. He will get in the championship 4, but they're all going to be chasing Kyle Larson. I think this is Larson's year for the title. It's a big year for him, of course. Indy 500 attempt coming up. You know, Indy 500, Coke 600 doubleheader coming up. This is his year, I think. And all the stars are lining up. I'm picking Larson to be the champion. In Xfinity, Championship 4, Custer, Allmendinger, Chandler Smith, and Justin Allgaier, I think. And Chandler Smith is going to be a first-time champion in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. He's my one to watch, as well as Sheldon Creed, his teammate, and Riley Herbst in the number 98. I do think Herbst can make a challenge for the Championship 4, but I just think he's going to fall just a little short. I think JRM's going to get a little better, and I think that, you know, Allgaier's just going to edge him at Martinsville. Truck Series, Eckes, Rhodes, Heim, and Ty Majeski. I think Corey Heim's going to learn a lot from what happened in that shit show race at Phoenix last year. He will overcome it, and he will become the Craftsman Truck Series champion. Of course, my guys to watch, though, of course, the aforementioned Corey Heim. I'm willing to say Ben Rhodes, too. But one other guy I might keep an eye on is Ty Dillon and Nick Sanchez, okay? Definitely Nick Sanchez is one. Ty Dillon going back down, trying to pull the John Hunter Nemechek way of going back, rebuilding his career, and coming back up to the Cup. And we'll see how that pays off, of course. But those are my guys to watch this upcoming season. And with that, let's make the picks for the Daytona 500 race weekend. For the Truck Series, I think Eckes repeats. he is going to get the truck win at Daytona. Xfinity at Daytona, Riley Herbst. He's going to get a lot of seat time between the Rick Ware entry and the Stuart Haas Xfinity entry, and I think it's going to pay off. Riley Herbst gets the job done. In the Cup Series, I think we're going to have a new two-time Daytona 500 champion, Michael McDowell. He looked strong in his duel. Now the Toyotas have looked good, but the Fords always seem to find a way in these big, restrictor plate or draft-dependent tracks. And that's where I think McDowell is going to come out with the victory. Again, hopefully next week I will have time to do an episode, or even just take time on the Tuesday episode to cover most of the off-season news that we haven't covered across the rest of motorsports and bring it all full circle here on Out of Turn 4. But otherwise, we will be back on Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern going forward. We'll be back on... and like I said, and hopefully Sunday morning Tinkle, No Final Bell, we'll figure out in the future. There will be updates here on the future of all of our shows. So just keep your eyes peeled. We don't know what's going on yet. I haven't really met with Jason about any of this. But we are back, and I can promise that Out of Turn 4 is back and in full swing going forward. And we look forward to bringing you another long racing season here on Tinkle Sports and Entertainment. Thank you guys. Glad to be back. Keep an eye on this channel and Tinkle Group Gaming for more content. And we will be back after the 500 race weekend. Until then, goodbye everyone.